I've recently done an episode on Sergei Taneyev, but there's another great Russian composer of the late 19th century who also is entirely overshadowed by Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff, and that is the superb Alexander Glazunov, whose music continues to be ignored at an alarming rate. I used to see pictures of Glazunov, somber, morose, obese, and I'd say, who wants to listen to lugubrious, dreary, plodding music by another gloomy Russian composer? Until I actually listened. And I discovered a sense of warmth and lyrical beauty, and best of all, an animation, a spirit that's engaging and delightful, and I can't begin to understand why his music is not played everywhere. Why do conductors and audiences seem almost addicted to the bombast of, say, the Tchaikovsky Fourth Symphony finale, while oblivious to the excitement and the sheer joy of Glazunov's Fifth Symphony? At least once in a while, my goodness, this was definitely not what I was expecting from the photos of Glazunov. And I fully recognize the greatness of, say, Tchaikovsky's three ballets. I feel that the end of Act One, the final scene, Act One of the Nutcracker, entering into the Snow Kingdom, and the Waltz of the Snow, is music of profound, sublime beauty. But I would still place Glazunov's three ballets alongside of Tchaikovsky's any day in terms of their sheer musical brilliance and appeal. That music that we heard under the opening credits was from Glazunov's ballet Ruse d'amour, the wiles or the tricks of love. Beautiful music. I want you to hear two dances, each only 90 seconds long, from Glazunov's ballet Raymonda in a very rare concert performance. First, there's a juggler's dance where the strings all play with the wooden part of their bows. It makes this clattering sound along with the xylophone and bass drum, but that's just the coloring of this delightful music. The second is a good old robust variation dance that is as great an example of feel-good music that I can think of. And this was strictly an orchestral concert, no dancers, only the music itself to speak to an audience full of adults and children. And Glazunov's ballets are filled with delightful music like this. Here is a passage from his ballet, The Seasons, near the end of the autumn section, where the winter winds blow in but yield to a gorgeous late autumn sunset. But the name Glazunov is most often associated with the disastrous premiere of Rachmaninoff's First Symphony in 1897, which the young Glazunov conducted. The reports say that he was drunk and he led a dreadful performance, which plunged Rachmaninoff into a 3-year writer's block that he was only able to pull out of when a psychiatrist helped him through hypnosis, after which Rachmaninoff composed his second piano concerto, so things turned out okay. But I am frankly getting tired of hearing, oh, Glazunov, wasn't he the guy who was drunk and ruined Rachmaninoff's symphony? Which I think actually does work against the public's interest in Glazunov's music. So I will help to set the record straight here with the testimony of an expert eyewitness, a certain Dmitri Shostakovich, who as a youth studied at the St. Petersburg Conservatory when Glazunov was director. In his memoirs, Shostakovich recalls how, as director, Glazunov devoted himself tirelessly not only to his students' musical training, but to their moral and physical well-being. Quote, "He helped people out of compassion," said Shostakovich, often total strangers. Glazunov felt that no real harm would come to the great and holy art of music if a singer without a voice, some mother of children without a husband, was given a job in an operetta company. Glazunov often ignored the conservatory's strict quota on Jewish students. If they had talent, he accepted them. And after the terrible suffering and deprivations of World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution, the communist government still awarded Glazunov a new high-class residence and amenities. Shostakovich wrote, quote, "Glazunov, who had once been a substantial and handsome man, had lost a catastrophic amount of weight. His old clothes sagged on him as if he was a hanger. His face was haggard and drawn. But Glazunov, a man of honor and dignity, said that he needed nothing, no special treatment from the government. Instead, he asked that they help the conservatory, which was freezing from lack of firewood." I mention all of this because the dignity, the compassion, and the sense of nobility are apparent throughout Glazunov's music. There's no doubt about it. The short work we're going to hear is Glazunov's Cortége Solennel, Opus 89, number 2. He wrote another Cortége Solennel, but this is a later and I think a better work. In fact, I would call it a miniature masterpiece. And this Opus 89 is referred to as Glazunov's Finnish sketches. That's not like, hey, finish those sketches. No, it's not. It's Finland. They're from the country, the nation of Finland. What is remarkable right from the start is the grim, warlike nature of this work, which begins with this march-like tread in the low strings. And above the theme is this. Two things about this. First, the bass and the melody are inversions of one another. The bass descends 3 notes and then returns. And the melody ascends 3 notes and then returns. And together, and secondly, the melody uses a modal scale, not a traditional tonal one. The music clearly suggests E minor or E major, both, either of which should have an F sharp with it. But it doesn't. Glazunov writes in an ancient mode known as the Phrygian, which is based on the note E, but it has an F natural. There. And this lends the work a somewhat exotic, even barbaric sound, like Borodin's Prince Igor March, which Glazunov had helped to edit. And Glazunov's Cortége, his melody, proceeds like so. The second phrase starts on the note E and does this. It's in A minor. But a minute later it repeats, starting on the same note E, but does this. It's just so lovely. I really love this, to have first time A minor, second time in C sharp minor. And the primitive sound is enhanced somewhat by the occasional use of fourths, which is this interval. So we have, and woodwind flourishes. The march theme now moves to the bass. And above there's a new syncopated theme, a bit shadowy. There are brief martial passages with brass and percussion, and I must say that this work is beautifully constructed. And I understand it's not a full-length symphony, which is much more challenging, but the organization, the architecture of this brief work is flawless. It's 4 minutes long, and we'll hear it all in just a bit. Ultimately, you will hear a major climax for the full orchestra, the theme being in E major now, but the bass motive is still in E minor. And submerged in this majestic outburst is another theme, a well-known melody that is proclaimed by the trombones. So here is this passage. See if you can pick out the trombone theme. And if you didn't hear it clearly, that's okay, because it's sort of a counter melody that will gradually emerge in the final minute of this work. The melody is the famous Lutheran chorale, Ein feste Berg ist unser Gott. A mighty fortress is our God, most famously used by Bach and Mendelssohn. And I've always wondered why this old German chorale appears here in Glazunov's Finnish sketches. It's such an overtly bellicose work. Well, as it turns out, the chorale, A Mighty Fortress, is considered Finland's second national anthem. The Lutheran faith was strong in the nation, and the hymn became a symbol of Finland's resistance against Russian oppression during their long periods of conflict. So it's pretty remarkable that Glazunov, a Russian, a very principled one, as we've seen, composes and dedicates this work to the Helsinki Philharmonic in 1912, almost in defiance of Tsar Nicholas's fading regime. In any case, Finland's #2 national hymn is heard ringing out above the clamor of Glazunov's warlike procession. And as the music fades into the distance, with the final echoes of the march tread, in the muted French horns, something amazing happens. The first time I heard this work, I said, oh, wait, stop. What was that? Play it again. It's Glazunov's harmonization of the chorale in the final minute that is so striking. Harmony, again, as I've mentioned, the main element in music that moves us emotionally. So here the chorale is in E major, and it's scored for divided strings and woodwinds, but lightly and ethereally. There's a glow, there's a radiance that, if played with subtlety, is absolutely magical. And Glazunov's use of Baroque-like harmonic suspensions, we call them, this pattern. Those suspensions largely responsible for the intense beauty of this passage. The chorale, as we know, begins like so. And Glazunov does this. The hymn ends softly in the brass. It's like a heavenly vision appearing over the field of battle. But vigilance is the watchword. The march briefly returns for a dramatic close to this perfectly written orchestral gem. Alas, a totally unknown one. Here now is a very rare live performance for you to enjoy. And please, I ask you, since the work is so wonderful and is so unknown, to please do what we need to get this video out into the world, liking and subscribing and commenting and sharing and all of that. And folks, please, give Glazunov a chance.